Today I'm going to talk about how important is image stabilization. To summarize, it's nice to have, it doesn't hurt, but also it is overrated. I will explain why. So first, where image stabilization is useful. Handheld videos is very important. Otherwise your video will become choppy because of your handshake. Handheld shot under low light. Basically, longer exposure, the more likely your image will become blurry due to handshake. And telephoto lenses. Obviously, the telephoto lens is a small movement on your hand can translate to a big blur in your image. And small pixels like a high-resolution sensors like Nikon D810 with 36 megapixel sensor, a small movement translates to a big movement. So where it is irrelevant, with a tripod, your camera is perfectly stable. You don't need stabilization. With a gimbal, it's stabilized, etc. With the monopod, the image stabilization can still benefit because the monopod is not very stable. You can still have handshake, the camera shake. Fast shutter speed, for example, you were shooting portrait under bright daylight at f2.0, f1.4 even. The shutter speed will be a 1/100th of a second or even 5/100th of a second. Then image stabilization is irrelevant. You will get a sharp image regardless. So why is image stabilization overrated? Because the advertised, say 4-stop, 5-stop never makes sense. It only reduces handshake. It does not reduce movement of your subject or the environment. Say you can get a sharp image at a 1/100th of a second, and if you reduce that shutter speed by 2 to the 5th power, say 5-stop, that's 32 times, then you'll be shooting at 32 divided by 100th of a second, which is about 1/3 of a second. In 1/3 of a second, your subject will move, the eye will blink, the wind is blowing, the grass, the leaves, they're all moving. You will get a blurry image if you shoot a picture at 1/3 of a second. So that 5-stop doesn't mean anything because it doesn't stop movement of your subject and environment. You should always try to take a shot at a fast shutter speed. Of course, under poor lighting, under say videos, and image stabilization can be very, very useful, but you shouldn't think of it will freeze everything, including the subject. It doesn't. It's impossible. Okay, so how can you benefit from image stabilization as a hobbyist? My first recommendations for a mirrorless camera, go for a body with a stabilized sensor. Today's mirrorless camera all have a stabilized sensor, so you don't have to worry about that. Unless you buy a camera like Sony A7 like many years ago. Otherwise, every mirrorless camera has stabilized sensors. For DSLRs, use stabilized lenses. The stabilized lenses are better than stabilized sensor because the stabilization is more custom made for the lenses. Only Pentax DSLRs offer stabilized sensors, so most likely, unless you're using Pentax, most likely you will use Canon or Nikon DSLRs, and you will want stabilized lenses. Because as I mentioned, it's overrated, but under certain situations with long exposure time, it's a lifesaver, so it doesn't hurt to have. Image stabilized sensor is always better than a non-stabilized sensor. Image stabilized lenses is always better than the non-image stabilized lenses, so it doesn't hurt. Unless, of course, if your camera is on a tripod, you will turn that off. Just one click of button, so it doesn't hurt. For DSLR lenses without image stabilization, use an adapter on the mirrorless camera. So, like you have Nikon lens 85 1.8G, is fantastic lens, very sharp. And if you want to use it on your mirrorless camera, use an adapter. So it will get image stabilization for free. Okay, that's my video today. Thank you.